If a Broadway show gets absolutely panned by critics, terrible reviews, or even mixed reviews, does that mean that it's gonna fail on Broadway? Let's unpack. Hey friends, if you're new here, my name is Katharine Quinn. I talk about Broadway lifestyle and financial freedom. I also work on Broadway and pre-Broadway and across the country. I'm currently working on How to Dance in Ohio on Broadway at the Belasco Theater. I also worked on The Great Gatsby at Paper Mill Playhouse. I was on the writing team for Shucked. It's been a wonderful and crazy year. So for better or for worse, theater is the love of my life. Also, if you see my arm wiggling around over here, my dog is right down here. You can post a photo of Feeny. And he's getting good pets right now. Broadway's having a rough go of it. Here's what's happening. Inflation is cuckoo cuckoo. We all know this. Like, I feel it, do you feel it, you feel it. We all feel it. Broadway ticket prices are insane. They're bad. They're bad. Why? The answer is they can, sort of. Some shows can. So for instance, we can throw up some Broadway grosses. It'll show us the top ticket price. For multiple shows on Broadway right now, the top ticket price is $500. $500 for a shitty seat that you can't fit in, for unrenovated bathrooms, for inaccessible theaters. It makes me irate. Theater owners, who's gonna be the brave one to talk to me? Let's have a conversation. Let's figure this out. You too can spend $500 and go see Daniel Radcliffe in Merrily We Roll Along, or Josh Groban in Sweeney Todd on Broadway. But if you aren't a Sweeney Todd, if you aren't a star vehicle, how the heck are you gonna survive nowadays? And part of what I like to do is debunk the myths of Broadway, unpack the business of Broadway, talk about showbiz. That's what we're gonna do here today. We're gonna talk about if a critical flop can be a commercial success. So we're gonna unpack this with a few shows. Some examples. Wicked. We know it. We love it. It's celebrating 20 years on Broadway. Ben Brantley loved this review. His review is wild. Ben Brantley of the New York Times, no longer theater critic of the New York Times. We now have Jesse Green, who's even grumpier about theater. But Ben Brantley loved Kristen Chenoweth and was like, she is a star, she is the star, she is the thing, she is the sun, the light, the moon. But he liked very little else about Wicked and was incredibly underwhelmed by Elphaba. Charles Isherwood called it strenuous and overstuffed in variety. The show is running 20 years later, it is making nearly $2 million a week, and it is still selling to practically capacity at the Gershwin, which is one of the largest theaters on Broadway. Not a critical success, but a commercial success. All right, next up, Aida. This is a review of Aida from Talkin' Broadway. Unfortunately, the Aida on offer struggles, mostly without success, to reach the emotional depth and quality of a cheap, mindless Saturday morning cartoon. To quote the now legendary qualifier, "Not since Carrie has the musical been this bland, superficial, unengaging, tuneless, and just plain bad managed to actually open on Broadway." Now let's talk about this commercial success. It opened on March 23rd, 2000 at the Palace Theater and closed on September 5th, 2004 after 30 previews and 1,852 performances. Considered by its producers to be a financial success, Aida on Broadway recovered its investment in 99 weeks and generated a profit of $12 million. And it is going to see a Broadway revival next year. So it's another one. The Color Purple. Okay, the original production, not the revival. Wish I could have seen the original. Did see the revival. Y'all, insert a clip of Cynthia Erivo singing "And I'm Here." It's just a grand plie. She sings, you know how Cheno talks about, I don't know if you know this, but Cheno talks about singing from your hoo-ha?
Breathe from your hoo-hoo.
Erivo sings from her hoo-ha. Okay, this is from the New York Times review. The show isn't stiff and anemic like its chief musical competition this season, The Woman in White. Rough year. Another plot-crammed adaptation of a novel, but it never slows down long enough for you to embrace it. Would that The Color Purple did take time to stop and smell the lilacs. Purple strikes some sparks during its long and winding journey. It lacks fanning sparks into a steady flame. It ran over 2 years, 910 performances. All right, here's another example. This is the Disney one. Which one do you think it is? Put an answer in the comments, show us if you're right or wrong. Which Disney show was a critical flop and commercial success? Like, the best example of it. Mary Poppins! All right, critical review, New York Times, here's a quote. "Well, I certainly hope so, Miss Poppins, but with all due respect, that heavy invisible volume on family counseling that you tote around with you makes it hard for any magical nanny to fly beyond familiar horizons." The reviews were lukewarm at best, It ran for 7 years, 2,619 performances. Okay, this blows my mind because I have somehow rewritten the history of this show in my mind. Somebody tell me if this lives in the New York Public Library, in the Lincoln Center Performing Arts Library, because also, is there a slime tutorial? We're gonna talk about it now. Spiderman, Spiderman. Spiderman ran for 3 years. Now, it was a little stop and start. I don't know if you remember this. I remember hearing about this. I did not see Spiderman. I think it was like, I will not give that money. In hindsight, I wish I had. I mean, I think at the time, I was just getting into theater and I was like, everyone's getting injured. I won't give my money to that production. But I'm so curious now. Ran for 3 years, 1,066 performances. What? When it finally opened in June of 2011, after an unprecedented 6 months of previews and a 3-week hiatus during which it was dramatically reconfigured, Spider-Man, did they have it out of town? Did they just open cold on Broadway? Did manage to make money. A lot of it. Its ticket sales exceeded $200 million, making it the 16th highest grossing show in Broadway history. But with a $75 million capitalization, that is the money put up by investors, which typically totals $10 to $15 million for a Broadway musical. Now, nowadays, that's literally like almost double. It is double. It's like $20 million is common. Plus, weekly operating expenses exceeding $1 million, the show needed to be a smash to turn a profit. It did fail to make back its $75 million. $75 million? $75 million? Okay, so I don't know if we can call that a commercial success. I'm gonna say, actually, we can't. So that's just gonna go in the flop territory, and I need to go watch the Wait in the Wings episode on it. Dang, that's crazy. Okay, now let's talk about, kind of want to make a separate video on best musicals that were commercial flops. Comment below if you want a video about the best musicals that were commercial flops. Unfortunately, so the opposite of this, critical success and commercial failure, which I actually feel like is really common. Which I think asks a really interesting question, which is, what is the value of a critic nowadays? How much does a critic's review actually matter? For Shucked, I know that the team was really interested, and I think that this makes sense. They wanted great reviews to be the push that told the general public about the show, and I think that makes sense. And I think similarly, Tony's, it's an advertising tool. I don't know how much y'all are aware, but I was dating a Broadway producer for a while, and the campaign nonsense and the political nonsense of the Tonys, boy, I wish it were merit-based. And that doesn't mean that I don't want a Tony, that, you know, people still want Tony Awards, but it is not a meritocracy. But back to the critics of it all. I'm curious to know what you think. Do you think that the value of a critic is the same as it always was? Do you think that it's evolved? Do you think that the New York Times, do you think they still move the needle? Have you ever bought a ticket based off of a New York Times review? Have you ever bought a ticket based off of a TikTok review? Like, I think that's the thing that I'm curious about. We're just inundated with so much more word of mouth via social media, and I'm curious where that balance is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Where does the power lie in terms of word of mouth versus critical success, versus critical reviews and commercial success? I would love to know what you think, so leave a comment down below. As always, I invite you to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at It's Katharine Quinn. Also, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I post new content here every single week. Thank you so much for watching. If you have something that you want to talk about in theater, you want me to break down in theater, please leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching. I think I already said that, but I really mean it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.